Today we're going to do a comparison between the Galaxy S25 Ultra versus the iPhone 16 Pro. From the last comparison where I compared the S25 Ultra to the S24 Ultra, it felt like I was comparing the iPhone versus the S24, and I didn't really want to say that because since I was going to compare the S25 Ultra to the iPhone 16 Pro next, I would say it in this video instead. So yeah, a lot of these pictures are going to be pretty similar to each other. You are going to see some minor differences like the colors, color temperature, and all that, but if you're not nitpicking on these stuff, then yeah, for you it might even look the same. So what are the biggest standout between the Galaxy versus the iPhone? Well, obviously the telephoto, that's always been a thing for a while now, so anything beyond like 15x or more, I feel like the Galaxy just has that in the bag. When you're shooting during the daytime, yeah, anything from ultra wide to like 5, even 10x, they look pretty comparable. Unless you really want to zoom in into the 10x, then sure, you'll see some differences, but for the casual consumer, anything below 10x looks great on both of these phones. Another thing to keep in mind is that the iPhone does have better highlight control or highlight roll off, because what I noticed on the Galaxy is that the highlights could be almost clipping or it is clipping. Now, I'm not saying every photo from the Galaxy is always like that, but there will be some where you can obviously tell that the highlights are overblown. Now for the colors, even though on the Galaxy S25 Ultra is toned down this year, it still has some saturation and contrast, especially if you're comparing it next to the iPhone. And sometimes I feel like the iPhone still shows a bit too green or too blue, which is less obvious if you're just looking at the phone by itself, but putting it next to the Galaxy, it makes it more obvious. Next up is portrait mode. I am showing 1x, 2x, and 5x, but on a Galaxy you do have an extra 3x option. I do feel like jumping from 2x to 5x is pretty huge, and I feel like using the 5x is pretty hard to use indoors, especially when you have limited space. So I do prefer to have the 3x option, and it's more versatile overall. As I mentioned earlier with the highlights on the Galaxy, I feel like with this set of pictures, the drink that Mark's holding is like almost clipping or even on his forehead. Now for these portrait mode pictures, I am leaning towards the iPhone just because I do like the warmer skin tones, and I know it is personal preference, but to me I feel like it just puts more life into the person, and it just makes them pop a little bit more so they separate from the background. And taking selfies on these phones, of course they're not as good as the cameras on the back, but between the two I feel like color stands out the most, where the Galaxy does have more saturation. I do feel like my face pop out a bit more. On iPhone it does feel a bit too flat, like sometimes again it leans towards the greenish hue, sometimes it can be pretty blue, and sometimes it gets it right. With this low light outdoor shot where there's a lot of tungsten lighting around me, you can tell that the Galaxy does a better job at white balancing. You can tell the colors of my gray sweater is actually closer to gray and my olive green pants. But on iPhone, you can tell that it's just slightly too yellow on the whole picture. Now Samsung did bring us to a basketball game, and I can imagine it being pretty similar to the camera experience if you were going to a concert. Yes, the Galaxy will win during the telephoto pictures or videos, so that will have better quality while you're zooming in, but with the highlights it seems like the Galaxy is pretty overblown, and I'm not tapping on the screen or anything on both phones, I'm just pointing and shooting, and this is all automatic. I know that the Galaxy has a new 50 megapixel ultra wide camera, but I hope that they can fix this issue in a future firmware update or something. Now if you do look on the brighter side, if you're taking pictures that's pretty dark, it does look brighter or more exposed than the iPhone. And also the colors do have a more pop to it, so I feel like a lot of consumers would just naturally pick the one that's coming from the Galaxy. And obviously with telephoto and low light, the Galaxy does have a better advantage there too. It is cleaner, you see less artifacts and noise, especially if you get closer to 10 or even max zoom on the iPhone, whereas on the Galaxy, even at the 30x mark, it looks pretty decent. Now onto video with the ultra wide, I still feel like Galaxy has one of the best ultra wide stabilization out there. And for the colors, they do look pretty similar to each other. They might be slightly different, and I feel like, but if you do look at the back, there is a bit more shadow detailing on iPhone, but then for some reason it kind of just skipped, or it looked like it was lagging on iPhone too, so that one is the first for me. Now for the video side of things, it does seem like the highlights is overblown on the iPhone and it's more exposed on the Galaxy. I do like the punchier colors on the Galaxy as well, but I know that is a more personal preference. And then moving to the wide, again it is more overblown on the iPhone, and I'm not doing anything specific, I'm just pointing and shooting. I did not even tap on the screen. So maybe the Galaxy is exposing on the court, whereas on an iPhone it focuses more overall or more on the shadowy darker areas like the people sitting down. Now I did zoom into 5x, and obviously the S25 is more punchier or has more saturation, but the stabilization on both are still pretty good. And then zooming video with max zoom, of course a bit more reach on the Galaxy, and also I think it's just a bit cleaner as well. And then moving outside using the wide camera, I feel like the colors on the iPhone is more neutral, whereas on the Galaxy the skin tone is really highly influenced by like the LED lights on the stadium that kind of gives it that really purplish look. So overall, I feel like the Galaxy is still one of the best packages for taking photos and videos, whereas a lot of other phones are really good at photos or just really good at video. So let me know your thoughts on the Galaxy S25 Ultra, especially when compared to the iPhone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.